Hey guys, and welcome back to another video after a long time. So the HP Pavilion Ryzen 5 4600H is here, and in this video we'll unbox it and give you my first impressions. So the unboxing experience is actually far less premium feeling than my 2018's Helios 300. But anyways, so inside we have the power adapter. It's actually much smaller than my current 135 watt power adapter for my printer, and at the same time being rated higher at 150 watts. There is also a quick start guide. The laptop is actually quite nicely packed. Alright, now let's unwrap the laptop and talk about the design and feel. Already it's way lighter than my printer. So the laptop is actually entirely made of plastic, and so it's very lightweight. The top lid is smooth with a matte finish, and I like the very clean and understated look of the laptop. It does not scream gamer at all. So I have the base model HP Pavilion with Ryzen 5 4600H and GTX 1650 without a SSD built in, although I'll definitely add an SSD later. On top of the keyboard spanning across the entire width of the laptop, we have this pattern with tiny holes, so this not only acts as a front-firing speaker grill but also as a passive air intake. Then we have the full-size chiclet keyboard with tasteful white backlighting. The backlighting actually has two levels of brightness. You can either turn it off, or you can have a maximum brightness or a medium brightness. As for the actual typing experience, coming from a printer keyboard built on a full metal deck, this keyboard feels slightly mushy and less tactile. But if you are a touch typist and like quiet keyboards, you will like the typing experience. There is enough key travel and you need very little actuation force, allowing you to type fast without getting tired. Although I don't quite like the small up and down arrow keys. The touchpad is slightly shorter due to the keyboard being pushed down, but it is actually very wide. It uses Elantec drivers, the tracking is good enough, gestures work well. I don't have many complaints as I mostly use an external mouse. The left and right clicks are below the touchpad and work well. These days, with powerful CPUs being packed into relatively thin and light laptops, it's quite important to see how good or bad the laptop's ventilation is. You don't want the CPU or the GPU choking for fresh air. In this case, HP did an excellent job with the venting on the bottom of the laptop, with lots of big air intake holes spanning across the width of the laptop. The bottom actively sucks cool air and the hot air is exhausted out of the rear vents. Simple and effective. Now let's talk I/O. The left side has a single USB 3.0 Type A port and the charging port. And on the right side we have the rest of the I/O with a full-size HDMI 2.0 port, one USB 2.0 Type A port, Ethernet, USB Type-C 3.1, 3.5mm headset jack, and a full-sized SD card slot. As for the hinge, I do hear slight squeaky noises whenever I open or close it. The hinge does not feel loose or anything, it's actually quite solid. In fact, it's quite smooth. And it's not one of those narrow hinges like on the old HP Omens and the Dell G series. I think the noise is because of the hinge being a bit too tight maybe. We'll see how it holds in the future. As you can see, the hinge design is very similar to my Helios 300 2018. So here's a size comparison. The HP has a much smaller footprint, mainly because of the reduced bezel around the display. It's also slightly thinner and much lighter. Last but not least, the display. So it's got a typical 15.6-inch 1080p IPS panel with a standard refresh rate of 60Hz. It has a brightness of 250 nits and an NTSC color coverage of 45%. In day-to-day use cases, as a casual, the display is fine for games and watching movies. Decently bright, no ghosting, good contrast and good saturation. It's a budget IPS panel after all, good enough for the price. I must say, the display felt a bit warm to my eyes at first, but it was quickly fixed by changing the color temperature from I think 6500 Kelvin to 7900 Kelvin. And that pretty much fixed it. You can change it in your AMD Adrenalin software. And apart from that, no complaints. I'm not bothered by the 60Hz at all. In fact, since it doesn't have any ghosting, I do like it. The contrast is good enough. I must say my first impressions about this laptop is quite positive. The only two downsides that I see is that this laptop seriously needed one extra USB 3.0 Type A port and the build quality might be slightly lacking. It's all plastic and it's quite lightweight. It doesn't bother me much because I handle my laptops very carefully. So yeah, we'll talk about it more in my full review. So those were my first impressions, and I'll come up with a full review of the thermals very soon. I'll also have a dedicated gaming review and a full review of the laptop. Alright guys, stay tuned for all these videos. Like, share and definitely subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.